In this course, we're going to discuss the mechanics of how an adjustable rate mortgage actually adjusts over the life of the loan. The rate on an adjustable rate mortgage is controlled by this formula right here. The index plus the margin equals the fully indexed rate. Now, in this equation right here, the index is the actual variable part. That's the part that changes over the life of the loan. The margin is actually set at the time of closing by the lender. Once the loan is closed, the margin does not change over the life of the loan. It's the index that varies or adjusts, which therefore causes the fully indexed rate to adjust. Now, adjustable rate mortgages almost always include caps. Caps are limitations on how much an interest rate can change each change. You have two types of caps. The first is a periodic cap, which tells you how much an interest rate can change each adjustment, and then you have a lifetime cap, which tells you how much an interest rate can change over the initial start rate over the life of the loan. So for example, in this 2.6, what that means is the 2 is the periodic cap and the 6 is the lifetime cap. So the interest rate on each adjustment cannot adjust more than 2% up or down from the previous interest rate. Over the life of the loan, the interest rate may not adjust over 6% above or below the initial start rate. So let's just go through a few examples. Let's say you have an adjustable rate mortgage that starts at 5%. And let's say it adjusts every year. At the end of the first year, the maximum that this loan can adjust would be up or down 2%. So it could go down to 3% or it could go up to 7%. Let's assume that this rate adjusts to 7% the first year. So at the end of year 1, we go to 7%. At the end of year 2, the maximum this loan can go is down to 5 or up to 9. Let's say it takes the full adjustment and goes up to 9. At the end of year 3, let's start up here, who's running out of room. At the end of year 3, the maximum this loan can do is down to 7 or up to 11. Let's assume that at the end of this period it goes up to 11%. Now, at the end of this adjustment, the maximum it can go is 11%. The reason for that is it has a 6% lifetime cap. We started at 5%, so because we started at 5%, we add our 6% lifetime cap. The maximum this rate can ever adjust to is 11%. So we are already at our lifetime max for this. So the loan could go down to 9, but it may not go above 11 because of the lifetime cap of 6%. Let's go through another example. This time let's use the 525. Now when you have three numbers, the first number is typically the interest rate cap on the first adjustment. The second number is the interest rate cap on the periodic adjustments after the first adjustment, and the third number is the lifetime cap. So on this loan, let's say we start at 6%. At the end of the first period, and typically these types of caps are used on hybrid ARMs, which have a longer fixed period. So let's say this is a 3-1 ARM. That means that this rate is fixed for 3 years, and then it adjusts every 1 year thereafter. So at the end of the 3 years, the maximum this loan can go to is 11%, because the maximum cap for the first adjustment is 5%. It could go down to 1% because it can go down 5% as well. So let's assume on this loan it actually adjusts to 9%. So at the end of the fourth year, which would be the second adjustment, the highest it can go is 11%, and the lowest it can go would be 7%. Let's say it doesn't take the highest it can go and it goes up to 10%. At the end of the next adjustment period, what's the maximum this can go to? Now be careful, because notice our start rate is 6% and we have a lifetime cap of 5%. So the maximum this loan can go to over the life of the loan is 11%. So even though based on this adjustment, if you looked at just the cap, the periodic cap of 2%, that would tell you could go up to 12%. But you have this lifetime cap that you're subject to. So the maximum you can go to is 11%, but you could go down to 8 because the 2% goes up or down. I know this is complicated, so let's review one more example. Let's assume we have an arm that starts at 7%. Not a very good arm. And it has 2 6 caps. So the first year, after the first adjustment, the maximum this loan can go to would be 9%. The minimum it could go to would be 5%. Let's assume it goes right in the middle and goes to 8%. Next adjustment period, it can go up to 10%, it can go down to 6%. Say it takes its maximum adjustment and goes up to 10%. Next adjustment period, it can go up to 12% and can go down to 8%. We're going to have it take its maximum again, so now we're up to 12%. Now as we get up here, let's not forget about our lifetime cap. Let's go back and figure that. We started at 7%, we have a lifetime cap of 6, so when we add the 7 and the 6 together, that gives us a lifetime cap on this loan of 13%. So right here we're starting to approach that. So on this adjustment, the maximum we can go to is actually 13%, but we can go down to 10. So on this one, let's say we adjusted to 13. So the loan is never going to adjust higher than that. It can go down. Let's say the next period it does go down. The lowest it can go down to would be 11% because that 2% cap is up or down. We've talked a lot about how caps control how the interest rates adjust. But we haven't discussed at all how the index affects things. And as we discussed when we started this section, I mentioned that the index is what actually varies. So we're going to go through some fairly detailed examples of how the index affects the adjustment. So in this example, I made a little chart. And it has in the chart the previous rate, the index, the margin, the fully indexed rate, the cap for that period, and the resulting note rate. So in our example, we're going to start, the previous rate is going to actually be our start rate. So let's say we start at 5%. At the end of the first adjustment period, let's say our index, whatever that may be, our index rate is at 4%. And our margin is at 2%. So if we add our index plus our margin, that gives us our fully indexed rate of 6%. And we're going to assume that this loan has 2 6 caps. Okay, remember that means that each period or each adjustment, it can only go up 2%, and over the lifetime of the loan, it can only increase 6%, and in this case, it can only increase 6% over the start rate, which was 5%, so our maximum rate is going to be 11, so let's keep that in mind as we do these adjustments. So if we have an index of 4% and a margin of 2%, that gives us a fully indexed rate of 6%. Think of the fully indexed rate as the rate that the loan wants to adjust to if it possibly can. Now, on this example, if we start with a note rate of 5% with our 2 6 caps, that rate can go up to 7 and down to 3. So our fully indexed rate, which is what the loan wants to adjust to, is within that range. And so with a 2% cap, we will adjust to 6%, which is what the loan wants to adjust to. And it can do so because of the caps. So that 6% now becomes our previous rate as we talk about the next adjustment. Okay, with this adjustment, let's assume the market's done horribly and the index is now up to 8%. Our margin, as we said at the beginning, never changes. So the margin remains 2 and will remain 2 throughout our entire example. So that gives us a fully indexed rate of 10%. Now remember, this is what the loan would like to adjust to if it could, subject to the caps. But remember, we have a 2% cap. That means that for this adjustment, we can go up to 8 or down to 4. We want to go up to 10. The caps say we can only go up to 8. So with the 2% cap, we are going to adjust to 8. So again, think of the fully indexed rate as what the loan would like to adjust to. So it would like to adjust to 10%, but because we can only go 2% above or below the previous rate, we are going to adjust to 8%. So let's do another one. So that 8% now becomes our previous rate. Let's say this year the index stays the same. And so at the end of this adjustment period, the index is still 8%. Our margin stays the same, so our fully indexed rate also stays the same. Our fully indexed rate is now 10%. Our 2% cap is also going to remain the same throughout the life of the loan. So now, based on our previous rate, we can go up to 10 or down to 6. The fully indexed rate is 10, which is what we want to adjust to. That's within our adjustment range, so we're going to adjust up to 10. Hey, let's say the next year, so again, that 10% becomes our previous rate. The next year, the index goes up to 10%. With a margin of 2%, that gives us a fully indexed rate of 12%. With a 2% cap, this rate, the previous rate, can go down to 8 or up to 12. But remember, we have an 11% max. So this loan will adjust to 11%, which is the maximum lifetime cap for this program. So even though the fully indexed rate is 12, and that 12 is within the periodic cap for this adjustment period, it's not within the lifetime cap. So the loan will cap out at the 11%. Okay, let's say the next year the market's recovering, so the 11% is our previous rate now, and the market improves, and so the index plummets to 5%. That makes our fully indexed rate 7%. So this loan can't go up because we're already at our lifetime max, can go down to 9. It wants to go down to 7, but it can only go down to 9 because of the periodic cap. So we will adjust to 9. Let's do one more. So that 9 becomes our previous interest rate. Let's say the index stays the same, and so our fully indexed rate stays the same. So this time we can go down to 7 or back up to 11, and we'll go down to 7. One more example, because I know this is complicated. Okay, this program, we're going to start at a start rate of 4%. So they gave us a pretty good teaser rate. And this program is going to have 525 caps. So remember, that means that the first adjustment is capped at 5% from the previous rate, or the start rate in this case. The subsequent periodic caps are 2%, and the lifetime cap is 5%. So with this loan, with a start rate of 4%, the lifetime cap, when you add that to the 5%, the lifetime cap on this loan is going to be 9%. So that's going to be our lifetime max. So we'll keep that in mind as we start doing our adjustments. So let's say at the end of the first adjustment period, our index for this type of program, and again, the indexes are controlled by the market. They change every day, they change every hour, they change every minute. It's just, if you review the course and the remainder of the course that talks about the indices, you can see the possible options for an index for an adjustable rate. Let's say on this one our margin is 3, and again, those are set by the lender at the time of closing. So this fully indexed rate is 8%. Remember, that is the rate to which the loan would like to adjust if the caps will allow it. Well, because this is the first time adjustment, the cap is 5%. So that means this loan could actually go up to 9%. Because the fully indexed rate is within that adjustment range, we will adjust to the fully indexed rate. So that 8% becomes our previous rate. Let's say our index goes up to 6 the next year. Our margin stays the same. Remember, that margin will stay the same the entire time. That means our fully indexed rate is now 9. So now, after the first adjustment, we're over to our 2% cap. That 2% cap applies to every adjustment hereafter. So based on the 8%, we could go up to 10 or down to 6. Fully indexed rate is 9, which is what we want to go to, and that 9 is within that range, so we are going to adjust to 9. Next year, 9 becomes our previous rate. Let's say the index goes up to 7. Margin stays the same, so our fully indexed rate is 10. And if you just based on the periodic cap, you could go up to 11 or down to 7. But remember, we do have a lifetime cap of 9. So even though we want to adjust to 9 based on the fully indexed rate, we're not going to adjust to 9. We want to adjust to 10 because of the fully indexed rate. But we are capped at 9, so we will stay at 9%. And one more example. Let's say the index plummets the next year to 4%. And so that makes the fully indexed rate 7%. Based on the caps, the rate could go down to 7. Can't go up because we're already lifetime max. And that 7 is within the range, so we will adjust to 7%. And I lied. Let's go one more example. Previous rate is now 7. Let's say our index really drops and it's now 1%. That makes our fully indexed rate 4%, which is what we want to adjust to. But remember, the caps are only going to allow us to go up to 9 or down to 5, so we will adjust to 4. Excuse me, that is incorrect. We will adjust to 5 because the 4 is outside of the range. Again, just so I don't confuse you, you can go down to 5 or up to 9. The fully indexed rate wants to go to 4, but that 4 is outside of the range, so you're only going to be able to go down to 5.